So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first.
At last we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last we will have revenge.
Always two there are.
Good. Twice the pride, double the fall.
You are the chosen one!
That's right, we are back. Somehow, just like Palpatine, we have returned. Welcome back to Roll On Gaming. And joining me again after his 1 week hiatus is my co-host, my brother, Corwin. How are you today, Corwin?
I'm doing great, man. It seems like we've got a lot to talk about, ready to talk some Unlimited.
Yeah, absolutely. We will get into it because there is a lot to talk about, as you said. But before we do, I just want to take a moment to recognize those people who have subscribed to our YouTube channel, who have commented and liked our videos, and who have just interacted with us on Twitter and other avenues on Discord and what have you. Again, we know you have a lot of choices for your Star Wars Unlimited content, and we really do appreciate you taking time out to listen to us in whatever capacity you do. I mean, this is something that we would do even if we had 0 followers and 0 subscribers, but going out of your way to make sure that we are being helped out by your subscriptions and by your conversations, and just getting to know all of you. Again, the community is some of the best parts of these games, and this is a game that we're particularly excited about, and one that we're particularly excited to engage with the community about. So again, we just want to say thank you, and we really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Could not have said it better myself.
So we'll go ahead and jump right in because we will talk about some spoilers here. There have been some spoilers permeating the community over the course of last week. And then we have to talk about the Fantasy Flight Games live stream that happened in the middle of the week last week, where they talked about casual OP and some other things that caused quite a bit of a stir. But first, as I said, we'll get into some spoilers. And this first one that we want to talk about comes to us via the Golden Dice podcast. Our friends over at the Golden Dice do a great job with their content, so please go check them out. Give a watch to the video where they discuss this card reveal, which is a 3-cost event called Open Fire. This is a single aspect aggression card. It is a tactic, and it merely says deal 4 damage to a unit. It has some pretty sweet art of some stormtroopers, wherein only one of them is opening fire. Now, Corwin, when you see Open Fire, initial thoughts? Go.
Yeah, it looks like a pretty solid aggression card. 3 resources for 4 damage. Still to be determined as far as what that does to, or how that stacks up from a resource efficiency standpoint. But given that a lot of the units that we've seen already, I mean, this card would take them out. They're not, 4 health or above 4 health units. It seems pretty strong from that perspective. Probably goes in a deck that's looking to just kind of wipe the opponent's board and then go in with their own units. I mean, that's probably the point of aggression and that specific aspect. But yeah, I think it's just a solid card overall for what it's doing.
Yeah, and and as you said, this is 3-cost removal, right? Your hope with the 4 damage that you're dealing is you're either getting rid of a unit or you're setting a unit up to be gotten rid of in another way on your next action. Right, so it's interesting to see how the developers view that 4 damage in the design of removal, because especially when you look on the flip side, there's a card called Repair that was spoiled by the folks over at Main Deck, and that is a 1-cost card that heals 3 damage from either a unit or a base. So the divide between the cost of healing versus the cost of damage. Again, I do think units are going to be the main engine in Star Wars Unlimited. They're going to be the thing that advance your win condition the most. So to be able to get rid of a unit for 3 resources, or even as you mentioned, clearing an arena to be able to have supremacy in that arena. It's still too early to decipher what sort of the strategies are going to be for this game, because there's so little that we know about it and so much that we still have yet to learn. But unit supremacy, arena supremacy is definitely a strategy that could exist because of the 2 lanes. And if you just wanted to clear the way for your plethora of space units or plethora of ground units to go in and hammer your opponent's base, this is potentially a card that can do that.
Yeah, it definitely is. And something else I'm curious about with this too is just where this is going to stack up in terms of like from an opportunity cost perspective. You can pay 3 to take out an opponent's unit, or you can pay 3 to try and advance your own board state. So we don't really know like where that line is going to be drawn just yet, but I'm still watching that very closely because 3 resources. I mean, this is something you could potentially play early game, second turn, but or second round. But if you're going to do that, like, what are you giving up to do so? And that's why I think that might fit into more of a narrow strategy, a narrow archetype, where you're really just trying to hammer your opponent's units and get them out of the way. We'll see what the rest of the aggression kind of aspect does, but I think that I'm just curious as to see how much more you can get for those 3 resources than just taking 1 unit off the board.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, for 3 resources, you could have Yoda. For 3 resources, you could have a wing leader. Mm-hmm. If you're playing aggression villainy, for 3 resources, you could have a probe droid and a Death Star stormtrooper, and now instead of dealing 4, you're threatening 6. So it will be very interesting to see how that balances, and if you're better off dealing the damage and getting rid of a unit versus adding one of your own to the board. Time will tell, as I'm sure time will tell with a lot of these cards that we're going to be talking about for the next X amount of months. But overall, an interesting card and one that I look forward to seeing in action. And here's another one that we want to talk about. This one was given to us by the folks, it was given to us by Fantasy Flight Games via the folks over at the Johto Cast. Again, they produced a really fun video about this, so please go check it out. This is the Auzituck Liberator gunship, another space unit, which is exciting as we have so few space units that have been revealed to this point. It is a 4-cost 2-aspect space unit, the 2 aspects being cunning and heroism. It is a 3/4 vehicle fighter, and it does have ambush. This is the first unit that we've seen with ambush. We learned about ambush obviously via the quick start rules, but ambush, as a reminder, after you play this unit, it may ready and attack an enemy unit. So ambush has returned, this time in Star Wars Unlimited and in a new format. What do you think of the Auzituck gunship here?
Yeah, looks pretty solid. 4 resources seems like it might be a little bit steep, but the ability to, I mean, it's got 3 3 attacks. So the fact that you can ambush with this card and take out a 3 or less cost ship right away is pretty interesting to me. A lot of the space units that we've seen so far have been kind of middling. They don't really have a ton of health. So it seems like this could be another way to just kind of take something off the board immediately while also bringing out, something to kind of fortify your own presence in space. So I like this card. It seems like it's going to be an interesting fit in the space arena. Yeah,
when I saw the Auzituck gunship here, immediately my brain went to the Imperial Interceptor, right? Because 1, villains, hello, duh. But also, for the same cost, you get a very similar sort of ability, right? So the Imperial Interceptor, for reference, is a 4-cost 2-aspect villain ship, but it's a 3/2 instead of a 3/4, and it has the ability where when played, you deal 3 damage to a space unit. So just the ways that these 2 cards are choosing to deal their damage, the Auzituck is doing it via an attack where it is open to taking damage as a result of that. But, other things can come into play sort of, as leaders or other cards that are influenced by, attacking units, versus the Interceptor, who deals the damage as soon as it hits the table, but then doesn't get to attack. So, that interesting sort of way of, okay, well, would I rather have this or versus would I rather have that? I think is going to be an interesting way to conceptualize decks moving forward, because, you can essentially do the same thing, but in 2 different ways.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, if it just surface level, if I'm choosing between the 2, I'm probably leaning Auzituck here because, the ambush ability, we saw what that did in Star Wars Destiny, so maybe there's some recency bias there. But the fact that it gives you that extra kind of action is pretty neat. But I also think that the reason I prefer it is because there's probably more upside with this card. The TIE Interceptor, as you mentioned, you deal 3 damage to your unit. That's going to be flat and the same every time. But if there are ever cards that exist in Unlimited where maybe they give like boosts to fighters, maybe there's some kind of unit or leader where it's like your fighters get +1 attack or something like that. now I'm ambushing for 4 or 5, and that's going to feel a lot better.
Yeah, no, that's a very valid point. And, if you're able to increase the damage output of the Azatuk, and, you still have a decent hit point pool of 4 where you can potentially survive an attack, then, yeah, I think this does put it a little bit over the edge. So good call on that one. Could be interesting to see what happens when this hits the table. So, again, go check out the videos of both Golden Dice Podcast and the Johto Cast for more in-depth analysis on these cards. But then we get to the card that was given to us directly by Fantasy Flight Games during the live stream. And this is one I'm really excited about because, again, villains. And this is Emperor's Royal Guard. Now, this is a ground unit, double aspect. It is command and villainy. It is a 3/4 Imperial. And it reads, when you control an official unit, this unit gains Sentinel. Okay. And we know, of course, Sentinel is the ability that states that you have to attack units with Sentinel before you attack a base. And then the other thing that's interesting that we'll get to here in a minute, but it also says, while you control Emperor Palpatine as a leader or unit, this unit gets +0/+1. So lots to unpack there. Obviously, the Emperor Palpatine pseudo reveal is very exciting, but we have to look at this card in the vein of, okay, you're going to be playing this with Emperor Palpatine. So you're getting essentially a 3/5 Sentinel for 3 resources, which, if you have a direct comparison with the Cloud City Wing Guard, which is also 3, that is a 2/4. So you've got a little bit more economy there for the Royal Guard here. I mean, what's your initial reaction to this card?
Yeah, it looks good. And I guess it means that we're going to see Palpatine in black or green or both as far as his aspect icons go. But anyway, that aside, yeah, this looks good. And honestly, like, Royal Guards feel like they've always been good in FFG Star Wars games. Like the Royal Guards were pretty decent. In Destiny as like a non-unique character. They're pretty beefy in Imperial Assault. So like I just feels like they're always like a solid choice. And it feels like if you're in these two aspects, why not? I mean, definitely going to give you some good defense for 3 resources, especially with Palpatine on the field too. So I do like this card quite a bit.
Yeah, I like the idea that it has Sentinel. I mean, again, it's, Palpatine is sort of a character that, it sits in the back and lets the pawns do the fighting for him. So, very thematic in that sense. And, the art is beautiful. It's really great art, as we've seen with all of these cards. The art for the whole set so far has been fantastic. And,
really good.
You have to assume that you're going to be getting Palpatine as an official. And so I just think that this card opens up so much for you, for 3 costs. And I'm really excited to see not only this card on the table, but also our Overlord Emperor Palpatine on the table as well. So we know based on this card we are getting specifically an Emperor Palpatine. What could an Emperor Palpatine do? Like what could a leader Palpatine, for example, do in your estimation that might be really cool in the scope of what we know about Star Wars Unlimited?
Yeah, it's so hard to speculate, this early on, but it feels like, there should be some sort of like manipulation factor to it. Maybe he is messing with, what the units on the other side are able to do, or, maybe he's giving, extra traits maybe to some characters. He's obviously going to beef up the Sentinel. So yeah, hard to speculate, but it seems to me like he's probably not going to have really like aggressive abilities, especially if he's not in red. It's probably going to be more of something tricky and clever, because he is, he's a mastermind.
I like the idea of manipulation, and I was thinking about this for a while as we were preparing for this episode, and I thought, it'd be really cool for Emperor Palpatine is he's somebody who uses you to his benefit for as long as he possibly can, and then casts you aside, right? So this, as a character, that's Emperor Palpatine at its heart. It's like Magneto said in X-Men: The Last Stand. In chess, the pawns go first. That is Emperor Palpatine, right? And so what we could have here is a leader potentially in this. And again, I'm not a game designer, so if somebody jumps into the comments and says, "Oh, it's broken," I'm sorry, okay. But what I imagine for Palpatine is he could, as a leader, you could potentially like pay a resource or two. I'm not sure what would the balance would be as an action ability and exhaust Palpatine. And when you do, you could make an attack with one of your exhausted units on either a unit or a base. And once that attack completes, that unit is defeated, right? So it's like, okay, you're already exhausted, but go that extra mile for me because I'm Emperor Palpatine. And then because you've done that, now you are deceased.
Wow, that's a very specific idea there, Kevin. It's like you haven't thought about this at all.
No, not at all. I mean, I told you, there's one thing right now that I think about in my free time, and it's Star Wars Unlimited. So I just sort of
I like it.
I sort of see that manipulation factor that you mentioned. It's like, how do I use you to the utmost and then cast you aside when you're used up? And that's, to me, that's what Palpatine could bring to the table.
I mean, he's all consuming, and that includes his own forces.
Yeah.
So, yeah, why not? Why not just render some units expendable to advance his condition? Sure.
Yeah. And then as a unit, maybe he's again one of those things where he uses other units as a screen potentially. Like maybe when you deal damage to Palpatine through an attack, you can choose one other unit in that arena, and one of that damage gets dealt to that unit instead. Something like that, where it's just like, okay, I'm deflecting the damage to my minions and they're taking it for me, type thing.
I do wonder if Palpatine as a unit, since it's pretty clear we're going to get both versions, right? I mean, that's how I read it.
At some point we will. I mean, it may not be it may not be in the first set, but it does look like at some point we will have both a leader and a unit. But if we have a leader, at some point it is a unit. So there you go.
No, that's true too, I guess. So yeah, I guess it could be just the one, but maybe the unit version of him is, has a little bit more of an aggressive feel, more of like a damage dealer or something. I mean, if he's going to be out there with his Force Lightning, like he's probably going to be taking units out. So that'll be interesting to watch for sure. But I mean, obviously the fact that we'll have him, it seems like we'll have him in the first set. Otherwise, why would they print, Royal Guard right away? That's pretty exciting for sure. I
am pretty confident we'll see him in set one. It will be interesting to see what the art is, because you mentioned the Force Lightning, but as you look at the art again on the Royal Guard, you've got him in the chair. That is also iconic visuals of Palpatine sitting in his chair on the in the throne room of the Death Star. But it's interesting. One of my favorite sculpts in the Star Wars miniatures game back in the day, you remember playing the Star Wars miniatures game, was literally just Palpatine in his chair. And it's like, well, how's it supposed to move? It's a chair. It's not like it's not like the walking little droid hologram, which they made as well, by the way, from episode 1, but it's literally just Palpatine in his chair and he just sits there. It's like, well, okay, well, I guess Palpatine's not moving. He's just directing traffic. But it was a really cool sculpt and I did enjoy it. So very interested to see what we're going to get from possibly an Emperor Palpatine. Really exciting to see these spoilers and all the other spoilers that have been put out into the wild, and I'm sure we're going to see plenty more as we ramp up to Gen Con. There is a demo deck stream next week, which I personally am very excited to see, because it's going to sort of inform my demo playing experience on the mere several hours that I will be at Gen Con. But yeah, just looking forward to just getting more and more information and more importantly, more and more cards to talk about.
Yeah, man, let's keep them coming.
Yeah. All right. So we'll move on to a topic that has had a lot of people discussing throughout the course of the last week, and that is something that we as a community have been asking for since the last FFG stream, and they didn't get into it for reasons, right? And they're allowed to reveal however they want to reveal, but they decided to jump into it this time around, and one of the game's developers and designers, Tyler Parrott, was on the stream, and he did a really phenomenal job of explaining all the decision points and considerations that went into the discussion of uniqueness. And so the uniqueness rule in Star Wars Unlimited, for those of you who were not watching the stream or haven't been on Discord and just, you know, or just need it revisited, and I will pull up the image of a unit here, specifically Grand Moff Tarkin, which was actually one of the units they talked about on the stream. The uniqueness rule in Star Wars Unlimited is if a card has the same title but a different subtitle, you can have both of them in the field at the same time. Now, what does that mean? You're looking at this image and you're seeing nothing that says title or subtitle, right? Well, you know, the title in this case is the name, Grand Moff Tarkin. And right below that, where it says Death Star Overseer, that is the subtitle. So what they're saying is that at one time, you cannot have two Grand Moff Tarkin Death Star Overseers in play at the same time. You can't do that. Not allowed. But what you can potentially do is you can have a Grand Moff Tarkin Death Star Overseer in one of your arenas or as a leader at the same time as potentially a Grand Moff Tarkin military Moff something, right? You know, whatever else a Grand Moff Tarkin subtitle would be. So a lot to unpack here, obviously, with this very, no pun intended, unique rule. Because, you know, this, and they said this in the stream, this has never been done. This is a precedent that's being set for any Star Wars game. Obviously, it's been done in other games in some form or fashion, but this hasn't been done in Star Wars games because of the implications of theme, potentially, that are there. But you know, what are your thoughts on this? Well, I'll say this. What do you like about this rule?
Well, yeah, it's going to take some getting used to, for sure, because we're so used to you see the little asterisk by the title and you can only play one of it. You know, that's just been the status quo. And so now that we're breaking that mold, it's going to take some time to adjust. I think it's definitely going to be fun to have different versions of the same character out. I can say that. Like, I definitely think that's going to be pretty cool to do. But you alluded to, you know, the thing that I don't really like about it, which is the theme aspect. I mean, just like thinking back to Destiny, even there were four different versions of Luke in the game, and you have like Farm Boy Luke, and then you have Jedi Knight Luke, and then you have Old Man Luke from the new movies. And to think that all of those can exist in the same battlefield, that just doesn't really make sense. So if you're throwing theme out the window, yeah, I mean, it's going to be definitely a fun little mechanic to take advantage of. But from a thematic perspective, it does feel like a little bit of an L to me.
Well, so it's interesting because the way they talked about it, the way Tyler talked about it in the video, right? You know, and this was something that Josh also elaborated on a little bit, is the idea of a moment in time, right? You know, each different Grand Moff Tarkin card, or each different Luke card, or each different Kanan card. Kanan was a big topic as a conceptual unit, not obviously a confirmed one. Each one of those that's different, that has a different subtitle, is a Luke or a Tarkin or a Kanan that is a moment in time of that character, right? So at one point, you know, there's the example that was used was there's a Kanan that has eyesight and there's a Kanan that doesn't, right? They're not the same Kanan. You know, it's not the same time period. It's not the same, you know, character experience that has been had by that Kanan. You know, same with Luke. You know, Farm Boy Luke is not the same as Jedi Knight Luke. They are different slices of time, and therefore they are different people. So that is one way to look at it. You know, obviously that's more of an abstraction than a theme thing. We'll talk about theme here in a little bit, but you know, on the whole, I do like this rule. And you know me, I'm a guy who loves theme. I wanted all my Destiny decks to be theme decks. You know, but there is something about you know wanting to play with your favorite Star Wars characters, right? And if I have Vader as a leader, then I can only put Vader into the ground arena when his epic action becomes available. And that only becomes available once per game under normal uniqueness rules. But in this scenario, I can have Vader as a leader or have Krennic as a leader and still be able to play a different Vader or a different Krennic in that capsule of time multiple times into the ground arena or whatever arena they're a part of, and still get more chances to play with my favorite characters. And I think that was sort of the heart of the argument for this ruling, was that if you know, just having a sick Vader leader makes any Vader units worse or vice versa, because you can only play one under normal circumstances. So this gives you the option to play as many of them as you want, while still, you know, getting, you know, and thereby giving you a chance to see your favorite characters on the table more often.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I definitely think that this rule is giving or lending credence to the idea of this is Star Wars Unlimited. You know, you can do pretty much anything you want, and I think that aspect of it is cool. There's no doubt that the idea of bringing different versions of the same character into the field is, I think it's cool on the surface, but I just think that there are some inconsistencies that it will lead to from a thematic standpoint, and I'm just not sure how I feel about that yet. An initial reaction for me is not a fan, but I also have to see it play out in practice to really make a final determination, and that obviously won't happen for a while. So I'll have to sit with it more. I definitely understand the arguments on both sides. I feel like I'm very much on both sides, but overall, I would say, you know, maybe it's a slight net positive, but not by much.
Yeah, I mean, and look, at the end of the day, you know, it's up to you how much you take advantage of this uniqueness rule, right? Like,
right.
It's very easy to say, "Oh, I can have every Vader in the game in my deck." Well, one, how many Vaders are there actually going to be in set one? There might be two, right? There might be a unit and there might be a leader. We're not going to see more than that, right? And secondly, if that happens, do you actually want to do that? Does that make your deck better? If it's a case of, I want to do it because I like Darth Vader, great, do it. You have the freedom to do so. If you're looking for the most optimized deck, there's nothing that says you have to do it that way, right? And if having both Vaders in your deck makes your deck less optimized or, you know, not flow as well, then maybe you try it out and say, hey, this isn't for me. You know, I think at any point in time, you might see 3, maybe 4 of the same character in whatever counts as the rotation at one time. I'd be shocked if it was any more than that. So it really does come down to sort of just freedom of choice within the game. It's like, do you want to have a deck that, you know, has every opportunity to become a meme? Cool, go do that. Do you want to have a deck that, you know, stays traditional to the values of thematic Star Wars? Cool, you can do that. And they said, even on the stream, they have built ways into the game of rewarding you for playing thematically in other ways. Whether that's tribal mechanics or whatever, we don't know just yet. But they have made a concerted effort to encourage players to play with theme and reward them for doing so, which is music to my ears, let me tell you, because they didn't do that in Star Wars Destiny, because that was sort of viewed as this like alternate universes thing where anybody could fight anybody and anything could happen. And this way, like, that can still happen, but maybe there's some more incentives to play with some thematic stuff in mind, and I'm absolutely here for that.
Yeah, definitely same. But I think the jury's going to be out on it for a while because, historically, whatever sort of mechanics or other benefits that thematic decks have enjoyed, they still haven't been up to par with the major meta decks. For the most part, I think there might be an exception or two. Raylo comes to mind from Destiny, but I just think that there are so many people that, and honestly myself included, even though I didn't really pay attention to theme that much in Destiny, I certainly will want to explore it here with Unlimited.
You kind of did. I mean, look, you won a Prime Championship with Chopper, R2-D2, and C-3PO. That's thematic.
Yeah, but that was also like the best deck in the game at the time. So I don't think that actually counts. I mean, Chopper and R2 and 3PO, were they even? I mean, did they even ever share screen time? Like, I don't know. But I just think that that there's always that question of, can a deck that's thematic compete on the same level as your top decks? And it's way too early to be talking about metas and structured organized play, like competitive play. But if we're talking about theme, which this conversation is definitely headed that way, yeah, I mean, can these abilities be enough?
I mean, I guess we'll find out. It remains to be seen, and I can't wait to figure out sort of how these these sort of rewarding concepts of playing with theme make their way into the game, because at the end of the day, I think a lot of people who like Star Wars want to see some form of a simulation on the table, and hopefully we get that. So we'll move away from the topic of uniqueness and get into a little bit of what the stream was designed for, which was casual organized play. Now, if you remember from the original announcement at the outset of Star Wars Unlimited, casual organized play was one half of organized play. It was split up into two sort of divisions. It was casual and it was competitive, right? And so this was sort of their way to showcase the casual side, and we got a lot of information about that. So what we learned when it came to casual organized play was that they're going to reward you for showing up and participating. If you have weekly events, which the kit is going to be designed for weekly play. It's literally called weekly play. You're going to be able to show up and either play in a sealed format, play in a draft format, play constructed. It's sort of up to the store as to what they want to do with these weekly events. But if you show up and you do that, you're rewarded with an organized play prize pack. And in the organized play prize pack, you get 3 cards. I'm assuming they're going to be random, but they're going to be alternate treatments of existing cards in the set, which any way to get alternate treatments is really cool. So that's really exciting. And then, aside from that, aside from showing up and playing, there was a lot of discussion about playing versus participating. So if you're participating, well, what does that mean? Well, the example was made, well, I'm just here and I'm building decks, or I'm just here and I'm trading cards with all my friends for a couple hours. But that's going to earn you a prize pack too. Under normal circumstances, and sort of that's how they are marketing this. Hopefully the stores see it the same way, because at the end of the day, there's not going to be an FFG patrolman sort of there to make sure that the prize packs are being given out, in the way that they're being intended to. But obviously a lot of thought has gone into this casual side of OP, where they're just rewarding people for playing the game. And one of my favorite parts about that was Tyler said that building decks is playing the game, which means that I'm always playing the game, because that's all I do is build decks. So that was really exciting for me, because it's like, okay, well, I can show up and I can just deck build, and that I do that anyway. So now I'm going to get some prize packs for doing that, but very likely I'm also going to be, wanting to play and participate as well. So I just talked for an inordinate amount of time, but your thoughts on weekly play and sort of the philosophy behind that.
Well, yeah, we all we all know what you're gonna do with the deck building things there, Kevin. You're always tinkering, you're always tweaking, you're always coming up with new crazy ideas. So definitely glad you're gonna be getting to play that way too. But yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this on the first episode too. Like the stores being able to reward players for coming in, that to me feels like the biggest win. And so regardless of how you can accomplish that, I think that's what we need to focus on is like if you're going to show up to a store and play, you should get something back in return. And it doesn't matter how you finish. It doesn't matter how you do. It doesn't matter what event you play. Like, I mean, maybe unless you're just kind of showing up to play casually with a buddy or something. Like if it's going to be an organized event, there should be some sort of baseline reward for participating in that event. I feel very strongly about that. People are giving up their time and other things that they could be doing to be at the store playing. So they should, there should be something for them. And I think that, moving in that direction is definitely the right way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I just have to hope that my schedule lines up to be able to make it every week because one, I want to be able to interact with the community, but two, I want to get those prize packs. I mean, come on.
Oh yeah, no question. Yeah, I mean, you think there will be a different prize pack for every week?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think if they're randomized, like they probably don't need to be. If it's 3 random cards, you can just allot an amount for however long you need to, and if there's like refills that you need to get from FFGOP, then that's what you do. But like if it's randomized packs, I don't think they need to be different. I do know that they did say like when it comes to things like store showdowns, which are going to be almost like the store championships in Star Wars Destiny, but it does seem to skew a little bit more casual in that again everybody will be getting something, but if you do well in the store showdown, they did say that you'll be receiving some stuff that shows that you did well. I have to assume for that it'll be like stamped product, like top 4 or whatever the case may be, store champion or whatever. That I think is going to be the differentiating point of the OP kits. Is like everybody gets these same randomized prize packs, but the different stuff comes in with the store showdowns. And when you're excelling in those, you're still playing and having a good time with everybody, but you're rewarded for your performance on that side of it.
Yeah, and I think that's just good structure to me. Having something as a baseline for everyone, and then if you do happen to do well in that event, there's a little bit of something extra for you. That just feels like the way it should be.
Agreed. And it's still, this is the jury's still out on this one, but I as far as I can tell, and this is sort of my one bone to pick with the casual side of OP, and that is the store showdowns that are tournaments, right? There's no way around it. They're going to be tournaments, whether they're friendly tournaments, casual tournaments, what have you. They're going to be a way for players to showcase their skill and showcase their ability in the game. There's no indication at this point that winning those store showdowns or placing well in those store showdowns will do anything as it relates to the competitive side of OP. And specifically what I mean by that is, we know that to get to the Galactic Championship or whatever it's called, you're going to need to accrue tournament points to be invited. It doesn't seem like there's a correlation with those tournament points and doing well in and or winning a store showdown. I'm a little disappointed by that if that ends up being the case, because it remains to be seen how hard it's going to be to accrue these tournament points. And I think if you can make it to a local event like a store showdown, you should be rewarded with tournament points. Quite frankly, we should be rewarded with an ability and an incentive to want to go and to potentially want to work your way up to qualifying for the Galactic Championship. Now, again, we don't know if that's going to be the case or not, but I think if it's not that, it would be a little disappointing because, again, you're playing in a tournament format, it does seem like that would be a way and a reason to get tournament points added to your record.
Yeah, it's not confirmed yet, so we don't want to jump the gun too much here. But generally, I agree with you. It's like it would be a real miss if the store showdowns did not reward tournament points towards the Galactic Championships, because for some people, like, that's incentive enough to show up. Prizes, of course, help, and if you have good prize structure, that's going to drive traffic in. But for those of us who are going to want to go to that event every year on the largest scale, yeah, I mean, how else, aside from the bigger like regional and other qualifying kind of events, you know, how else are you going to accrue those points? I just think, again, it comes down to, I know I'm beating this like a dead horse, but it's really about just rewarding people for coming in. Like, it's got to be part of that. It's got to be part of that overall structure. If you take the time to show up to an event, regardless of how you place, regardless of how you do, something should be credited. And, you know, I can just see a situation where someone goes and travels, because, you know, not all stores are super close. Maybe they travel to 7 or 8 of these things and, you know, have nothing to show for it because they didn't place, but they went and wanted to have a good time. I don't know. That seems like that a person like that should be able to go. And so it's again, kind of getting out ahead of ourselves a bit, I think, because we don't know one way or another. Yeah. But if that is the direction that we end up heading with the more local events, it will be disappointing.
Yeah, and like you said, it remains to be seen. I think there's so much about this game that still has yet to be determined, which is both exciting and, you know, a little nervy in the sense that, like, well, you know, everything so far, for the most part, for me, has been, wow, this game looks great and amazing and fantastic and wonderful, and when can I play it, and when can I get it, and this, that, and the other thing. It's like, it's almost like you're waiting for the shoe to drop, and I hope there is no shoe that drops, right? I firmly believe that this is going to be an awesome game, just based on how it looks and how it plays. You know, in just sort of such a small sample size. But you know, as we learn more about the game, you know, we'll see sort of how all these pieces tend to fit together. And honestly, I just can't wait to learn more. I'm so ready. I'm so ready to have the full picture. And the game doesn't come out till 2024, which is just, it's slowly like, oh, it's like it's like the Fugees, right? It's just killing me softly, right? You know, FFG is strumming my pain with their fingers more than one time. And so, you know, I'm just going to keep singing my life with these words. You know, that's just what I'm going to do.
Oh my gosh, this guy.
Yeah. I think that is our cue to sort of wrap things.
I would say so.
To wrap things up for this episode. Again, thank you all so much for listening. For those of you who made it this far, thank you for taking the time out of your day to tune into us. Again, we really, really appreciate it. We're going to keep talking about all things Star Wars Unlimited as they come out. We're going to try to have sort of as consistent of a schedule as we can. We're both, you know, obviously employed and have things going on. So, you know, we're going to do our best to keep churning out the thoughts and the feelings and the emotions and the bad puns and all of the stuff in between that we can muster where it comes to Star Wars Unlimited. But, you know, it's as it always is, Corwin, it's been a blast, and, you know, we're gonna keep this train rolling.
Yeah, this is great. I think we're starting to slowly peel back the onion, you know, layer by layer, and every time we do, it just builds the excitement, the anticipation. So definitely excited to see that stream next week, get some live gameplay going, and get a feel for kind of how things are going to flow from a gameplay perspective. And I'm sure we'll be coming on and talking about that.
Yeah, you better believe we will. So that'll about wrap this up for this episode of Roll On Gaming. So again, thank you all for listening. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. If you're new, feel free to like the video and comment down below about your favorite spoiler, what you're most excited for to learn about in the next stream from FFG, or if you're going to Gen Con, let us know if you're planning on demoing the game and what you're most excited about to get your hands on physical cards over at Gen Con. And
go say hi to Kevin if you're going, because he'll, even if he's only there for a few hours, he's gonna be around.
Go say hi to me for the few hours that I'm there on Sunday. I would love to meet any of and all of you who are demoing games on Sunday morning. And hopefully there are no issues with my flight and everything goes smoothly. So fingers crossed there. But again, we're gonna call it an episode here. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks to my co-host Corwin. Thanks to me because I did a lot of talking. And as always, have a great one. Appreciate it, everybody.